Yeah, we just started back last night, actually. The first rehearsal in the new year, 3 weeks late. It should have been our
Does that
third
include
rehearsal.
does that include NABA prep?
We just started our NABRA prep last night. And we were
Nice.
supposed to start at the beginning of January. We took 2 weeks off because of the rising numbers of corona cases. And then we just came to the conclusion that, well, life is going on and we're the ones missing out because we're not participating in it. So we just jumped back into it. It's funny because one of the things that I made sure I did because of all this is I went in early and spaced the band out more and put a couple of feet between everybody. I don't know if other people have experienced this, but the band was much louder. I mean, much louder. Like, and this is something that we've always known is that if you allow the sound to resonate from player to player and then gel, it is going to be louder. And brass bands typically sit shoulder to shoulder really close so that stuff is all gelled in together. So I was just like, wow, this is really loud. I was like, this is cool. I actually like this.
Hey, so welcome everybody. We're in a brand new episode. We're in a brand new year. It's a brand new season. We've already recorded one of these things, but this episode, though I am joined, of course, as always, by my fabulous co-hosts Amy and Tony. This is Amy's episode. This one we're going to talk about Amy the whole time, nothing but her. Specifically, we're going to get into the weeds of everything.
Are we gonna
And
call
she
this?
looks so,
Are we gonna call this the
I'm
one with Amy?
I'm slightly nervous.
so with that in mind, so we already did. I think it would be silly because I think in our zero episode, the one that we did with just the host, we talked about like our backgrounds and like our education and how we got into that and everything. So I don't want to necessarily do a TLDR of like that. I don't want to hear your CV. What I would be
Right.
really interested is who is Amy now in January of 2022? Like, what are you up to? What are the projects you're doing? What bands or ensembles are you playing with? All that sort of thing. Because I know, because I have the misfortune of trying to schedule anything with you, that you're up to a lot of things. So give me a kind of like a hit list of all the various things you're up to right now.
I'm always up to a lot of things. Well, right now, I'm doing this great transition with my online teaching. I've basically filled up my available schedule. I teach 5 nights a week at this point, and I don't really want to expand past that because I have one night where my dress rehearsals tend to be, and I have one night that I just plain old want off. um, so I teach 5 nights a week at this point, and my real time teaching is pretty much filled up either with in-person euphonium lessons or online brass, piano, music theory type lessons. So what I'm doing right now is I'm expanding into more asynchronous material. Um, and so I'm teaching partially on a platform called Outschool, and it has about 1 million users, million plus kids that use this. And so what I do is I have asynchronous classes, asynchronous theory classes, asynchronous um, piano stuff. I have, and then what other ones do I have? I have asynchronous like music and art stuff for the little kids where I play some music and I pause it every now and then and talk a little bit about, you know, the big composers. We'll have a Bach week, we'll have a Beethoven week, we have a Hildegard week. And they create art while they're listening and to the music and creating and we're talking about we're quote talking because it's not in real time, and then they post their artwork and I create some discussions with them asynchronously. And it's a great way for a lot of kids to learn, especially right now when they're home. A lot of kids are on are home for quarantine, or there are lots of homeschooling kids out there, or in Australia, they're on summer break. So I do a lot of that to kind of expand what I can offer. Because as I said, I've kind of run out of time. And then I have a platform on Outschool that's called that's like clubs. So it's almost like Aaron, you're raising your hand.
Yes, teacher,
Yes.
sensei. I have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious about so Outschool. So it sounds like it's like just an online teaching platform. Like people come into it, so it's not like a Skillshare where you have like filmed yourself doing a class for a period of time. It's more of like you're teaching a class at this designated time and they log into it and that sort of a thing, right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
linked up. It's linked up with Zoom. And the teachers who are on it, they're vetted, they have background checks, they're interviewed, they do teaching samples. So like everyone on it is like a bona fide teacher. And there are safety measures in place. All of the meetings are recorded for safety so that if anything happens, parents are covered, teachers are covered. So they
Yeah,
have the
I'm poking through it now. It has like Tony, we can take that ballet workshop that we were talking about. It has a ballet workshop for beginners. Like right
I'll
on the
get
head
my
page.
I'll get
well,
my
you're over 18, so you're a bit out of luck.
Oh, we can't do it.
You can't do it. I'm sorry.
I look young for my age.
I thought I had the platform. I know, right? I mean, just like whenever I get ID'd for something, and I just like if anybody under the age of 21 has this hairline, I'm so sorry for you and your genetics and everything that you've had to go through.
I had that issue.
Well, I had that issue once when we went out after all of the juries were done at Rowan, and they carded me, and I was with all of the other brass professors, and I was mortified. And then to top it all up, I had gone to the comedy club the night before, so I did like the credit card and an ID in the back pocket deal. So I didn't have my ID with me, and so I said, "Listen," I said, either I'm Doogie Howser or I'm over 21. I said I can provide my faculty ID to two different colleges, and she said, "Who's Doogie Howser?" And I said, "Well,"
that's the key. That's how they knew you were over 21. You
and
knew
I
who
said,
Doogie
"Well, it
Howser
was a show. Yeah, it was a show that was on when I was young because see, I am over 21." And she was like, "Okay."
She had to Google Doogie Howser. It's like, oh, that was a show from the 80s. Yeah, you're old enough.
Right.
Oh, I remember the 80s, all 3 months of it that I lived.
Yeah, 5 years, 5 years, the 80s.
All of them.
So what do you put? Because I'm just curious because the amount like the diversity of things that you've done because you're teaching general music classes. You also obviously teach your specified instruments.
Yeah.
But you also are an author. We've talked about it on the podcast before. You've got an album out. Like you've played with brass bands. So what's on your what do you like? What's on your business card? Like what do you call yourself? Does it depend on who you're talking to and what you think they're most interested in? Like
wait a minute. Do we do business cards still?
Right. I don't really I don't have a business card anymore. I think I kind of just let that go. I have what I on my bio, I put a quote because I think that Four Bars Rest did it when I think they summarized it well. Said Amy Schumaker Bliss is a pioneering spirit, performer, educator, academic, conductor, author. And I was like, that seems to summarize.
So pioneering spirit is what you put on there.
So,
pioneering spirit, comma, euphonium.
So I don't know. I basically I try to figure out what hasn't been done and do it within music.
So there's something that is very specific, and to at least my interests. Tony, I'm not sure where you're going to be landing on this one, but it's something that we have to wiggle around, and we kind of experience secondhand through you, that you have to deal with, and that's the fact that you are a parent of like younger children,
Yeah.
And I'm recently married. We've had that conversation. We're gonna pull the goalie at some point. We know that's gonna be a thing. So, any advice? Any warnings? Anything for me? Tell me to stay away and just don't do it. We have enough. No more people needed. Procreation. It's not necessary anymore. That's on my business card.
Well, I think it's an experience, that's for sure. I right now I think with us, Tony and Aaron and me, like my kids have come to the forefront right now because my 5-year-old has decided that he is suddenly a teenager, and my 2-year-old has realized that, well, he is too. And so he's kind of freaking out about everything, and throwing himself on the ground and refusing to go to sleep, and all the things that 2-year-olds do. But really, I think having kids has made me really efficient with my practice time. And I think one of the questions that was submitted to us was, what kind of warm up routine do you have if you have like 5 minutes, if you have 15 minutes, if you have 30 minutes? My practice sessions are frequently like, the kids are happy sitting in front of the TV. Go, go, go. you have exactly however many minutes the kids are willing to watch Curious George.
I literally think you have messaged me. Like, I've sent you a message, and you've gone, I'll get back to you in 20 minutes. This is my only practice time
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
the day.
And nothing will get in the way of my practice time. I have these little blocks of time. Like before we recorded, I dropped my kids off, one at preschool, one at the babysitter for a bit. And I had like 9:30 to noon. And so I got back, and it's go time. Like, don't get in my way. I'm going straight towards the euphonium. I will practice. um so and I think one of the things with kids is, I think in our country especially, we say, the best place for a kid is at home, and you should be with them all the time. And no, sending them to the babysitter every now and then so that you can have your peace of mind and get your professional time practicing or responding to emails or arranging that piece that you've been working on, that's good for the kid. And so at first I felt a little bit of guilt about it. And then I talked to other brass playing moms, because there's a great Facebook group called Brass Moms. And we talk about all this stuff. And you really don't need to feel guilty if you're a parent and you send your kid to the babysitter every now and then so that you can get some work done, because it makes you more balanced as a person, and then you're going to be a better parent in the end.
Yeah, but don't you get tired?
I am always tired.
Because I'm minorly inconvenienced, and that's enough to knock me off of my interest of practicing. Like, I'll be like, I had to put some extra air in my tires at Wawa. I'm just gonna cut the scales today. That was the 3 minutes I designated to that, and there it goes.
Yeah, I will like chug some coffee and sit down and practice, because I'm like, if I get I'm good to go if I get more than 5 hours of sleep. That's just kind of like the state that I'm in right now. So if I get some time, I'm just gonna energize myself artificially and just sit down and get as much work as I can.
Are you the
You
type
know,
of person that can function on 5 hours of sleep, or are you one of these, I need 7, I need 8?
I used to be someone who needed 7 or 8. But I think my body just kind of adjusted. I usually get I I I think 6. If I get 6, like I feel my normal self. If I get under 6, then I'll probably find a way to doze off at some point during the day. So I'm like, I am so addicted to caffeine at this point, because my kids are little, and I had a conversation with one of my private students the other day, and he was like he said something like, oh, I only got like 6.5 hours of sleep last night, I'm tired. And I said, so did I, so let's get going. Like, let's do this. And he was like, what?
Let's be
like,
miserable together.
And I was like, he said, I wouldn't do any of this if I was this tired. And I said, well, what's the alternative? I said, I refuse to not be a good parent to my kids, and I refuse to give up my career. And this is the alternative that we're presented, that a few years you don't get enough sleep and you just tough it through. You drink more caffeine.
Yeah. Do you ever find that there's a point of diminishing returns where, like, maybe like on this weekend, well, I'm going to sleep in and I'm going to make, or you just get lucky, like every 2 or 3 weeks, you get a day where, things just kind of slow down for you. Like we're going to have a snow day tomorrow, down here in North Carolina. So, things are going to shut down. The stores are going to be out of food. People are going to be running and screaming like crazy people because 2 inches is coming our way. The end of the world is coming. Oh, don't laugh, Aaron. If Florida got 2 inches of snow, you would see the end of the world coming.
All right, listen, sir. You guys act the same way over a hurricane. Oh no, it's a cat too. Got to batten down the hatches. We're like, is the Waffle House still open? We're good. we base things on the Waffle House scale.
Waffle House is closed. It's a bad one.
It's a bad store. So Waffle House is a great gauge of things. Like if you're in a neighborhood where the Waffle House has all of the letters illuminated at night, one, it's not a good Waffle House. Two, that's like a $400K minimum annual salary neighborhood. Like, you just know that right away.
If that's the case, would anybody be going to that Waffle House?
Exactly. That's the thing. That's why it's so new. They're like, oh, we need to make sure that we diversify. We got our Applebee's, we got our Chili's. We need some breakfast food. First Watch, nah. Let's do.
Yeah. No, if you're in the 400K neighborhood, you're going to First Watch. You're not going to Waffle House. Let's be honest about that.
Yeah, there's not a lot of avocado at Waffle
down
House,
in Florida, sure. Aren't you going to another Broken Egg? The Dick Vitale.
So that is a thing that has been popping up. Is that a thing? Because I've seen them.
Yeah, another Broken Egg. It's a breakfast lunch place. And Dick Vitale used to talk about that all the time, being in Tampa. Where
I've only ever seen two, which I guess is a lot.
Well, then go there. You'll see Dick Vitale there. I'm sure he lives there now.
Where's my autograph book? So
awesome,
speaking of over caffeinated. Hold on. Yeah. Speaking of being over caffeinated, so I got carded yesterday for caffeine.
Coffee?
What?
No.
Coffee?
So Wednesday's my day to go to Gainesville. So I wake up at about 5:30, roll up to Gainesville. I'm running on fumes. You can ask Dr. V. By the time we get to brass band rehearsal, like at 9:20, and we're playing Enter the Galaxies, like, it's just, I'm a corpse. And I bought a Bang energy drink in the morning when I got there, and then I came back around for another one at about 1. If you all don't know this, Bang energy drink, if you drink 2, you are now exceeding the medical limit of caffeine for the day.
What is the medical limit of caffeine?
I forget what the milligrams are. If anybody's really interested, I can look it up and we can post it later. But if you go to a gym, for instance, they will not let you buy 2 a lot of the time. Now, irresponsible gyms will let you do it, but and I knew, and there was a cup of coffee in between there. But that's when we get to like heart failures and stuff like that, like especially for people who are like overweight and stuff. And so she looked at me and she was like, "How old are you?" And I was like, "I'm like 32. What do you do?" She's like, "Let me see your ID." And I'm like, she's like, "I don't like doing this, but I can't legally stop you from doing it."
Did you have the shakes already, or what? Like, why did she card you for caffeine?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, when you're on a caffeine high, do you know?
I'd like to buy this caffeine.
When you're on a caffeine high like that, do you know?
I don't know. I don't do
Exactly.
caffeine, so like I don't drink.
That's how my band knows. How fast are we going? How fast are we taking my grandfather's clock today? Takes another sip of coffee. Let's go. Carnival Vince got real fast that rehearsal.
I'm lucky. I have never enjoyed or liked coffee, so you know that caffeine addiction is not something that I've ever really dealt with. You know.
I have like I'm into matcha, so I'll have matcha in the morning. Maybe like a coffee or tea like halfway through the day, and then I usually will have like a coffee or tea before I start teaching in the evening, because I've been watching the boys all day long. And then that's when I start teaching. When I when I finally survived watching two little kids all day and keeping them alive, then it's time to start working. So I need some coffee or tea or something at that point too.
Well, since we're all sharing, first off, best advice I ever got. If I can give this to anybody in the audience, this is the only good thing I'm ever going to share for y'all. The best advice I ever got was when I was briefly doing a stint of like trying to join the Marine Corps, and my recruiting officer told me just learn to like black coffee, and I did at the time. But he was like, if you just do it, because you never know if they're gonna have your sugars or your almond milk, like the things that you specifically like in your coffee. You never know if they're gonna have it, but they will just have the coffee. And also, the less of a pain in the butt you can be, the more people will appreciate you.
Yeah,
It's really like I don't know if anybody else does this with their Starbucks orders, but I will order based off of the line. And it's mostly just to be nice to those people. Like if there's no one else there, I'll get something fun or fancy or whatever. Like I'll get a iced latte or something. Like I'll get something that I can't make at home. But if there's a ton of people, can I just get a medium hot coffee? And they literally pour it and hand it to you, and you're walking past the like 20 other suckers waiting for their fancy drink. Have fun waiting for your vanilla bean latte, suckers.
You could probably also go to McDonald's and save $3 on that black coffee.
Listen, it's a status symbol. I did not get my master's degree to keep drinking McDonald's coffee. I'm kidding. You drink whatever y'all want.
If you didn't drink at Starbucks so much, you wouldn't need that master's degree to enhance your
higher education would tell you otherwise. Don't you tear down this cult that I have joined, Tony.
But it's like coffee and cigarettes. If you smoke and drink coffee, you need a high powered job just to keep those habits going.
So Amy, I want to do a little bit of a lightning round of some of your favorite things that you are totally prepared for.
A few of my favorite things.
We're adding. That's not one of them. Favorite show tunes? No. So if somebody makes me mad, I do threaten to sing a whole musical at them. And they go, "You can't sing a whole musical." And I'm like, "I said what I said."
You can sing a whole musical?
Ba-da-da, ba-da-da. Yes.
By the way, since you brought
non-entertaining.
Have you seen West Side Story yet?
I have not. I'm afraid to. Afraid to.
Go see it. It's
amazing.
Great.
Genuinely.
It is amazing.
Genuinely, it's really good.
The reimagining of it is not as reimagined. Like the biggest thing that they changed in it is that the character of Doc, they put Rita Moreno, who was the original. She was in, and she's playing Doc's wife, and Doc's not there. He either passed away or he's somewhere else. But other than that, they still have the 50s thing. They still have the new, so it's not as reimagined as you would think it is. The music is spectacular. Somebody told me that it was the New York Philharmonic did the soundtrack to it.
Gustavo Dudamel conducted it.
Dudamel conducted it. The singers, they're all fairly unknown, but they are spectacular. Maria is just unbelievable. So, if you haven't seen it and don't be hesitant, go see it. It is really, really good. Steven Spielberg killed it.
That's the only thing that made me. So I was in the play and everything. That's the only thing that made me excited for it, was that seeing Steven's involvement in it. I was like, he typically knows how to handle nostalgia products pretty well, and he did. Yeah. But I swear, if the person who played Raph and the person who plays Anita, if they don't get Best Supporting nominations, I will riot. They were phenomenal. Tony is actually the worst cast person of the entire thing. He's pretty much the one who falls the most flat in comparison to everyone else around him.
Yeah,
and Raph just crushes it.
Yeah.
But so if anybody's
sorry
curious
about that introduction. I mean when I saw it, I was just like, wow. I was like, I was supposed to go to California over the break and go to the Rose Bowl and visit my dad, who I haven't seen since before COVID. And we were going to go to the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood and see West Side Story in the El Capitan. It was running through the holidays, and that all got canceled because of all the canceled flights and the coronavirus upsurge and everything. So we ended up not going. And the Rose Bowl was epic. It's the best Rose Bowl since the USC Texas game, and it is all just missed opportunities. Thanks, Corona. But
thanks, Corona.
Thanks, Corona. All right, so it's lightning round time for Amy.
So a little bit of a lightning round. I'm not timing it or anything, but I just wanted to. We're getting to know Amy a little bit more, and so I'm gonna ask you some like brass band favorites for you. So let's start with a pretty simple one. Let's do. What is your favorite brass band piece that you've played, specifically that you've played, which I know you've done the gamut, but let's start there. And don't feel like you're locking in, because I feel like whenever I ask favorites, especially to you, crew, you all go, I have to make sure I pick my absolute favorite. You can just go off the top of your head. Like, it's not like we're going to log this.
Going through the mental rubric. No, favorite hands down is Resurgam. I've conducted it, I've played it, I've researched it, I wrote paper in my doctoral stuff on it, and hands down favorite.
Do you have a favorite composer for brass band?
I don't know. I've never really thought of that. No, I you know what? I don't think I have a favorite. I like getting to know each composer, and I like sometimes it's like putting on, like your favorite hoodie. Sometimes you want your favorite hoodie, and then you have the spark and the gram and stuff like that. And then sometimes you want something totally different, and you grab some other brass band composer that you haven't played before, and you're like, wow, this is like, making me hear the relationship between these instruments in a new way, or doing this in a different way. And so I am equal opportunity brass band composer liker.
Did you guys watch?
She dodged that one, dude.
Well, that's what made me think. Did you guys watch the? I'm one of those nerds. I have a WoB Play account and I use it frequently. Did you guys watch this year's Brass in Concert?
I haven't seen this year's. I saw a bunch of last year's, not this year's.
I forget the gentleman who always hosted. His name escapes me at this moment, but
it's Frank Renton.
There
MC? Go. Yeah, Frank Renton.
Yeah. And he just kind of answered. He was answering questions from like Twitter and stuff like that in between bands and this sort of a thing. And somebody asked him, they were like, "Who's your favorite between the two, Philip Wilby or Mahler?" And he goes, "Well, seeing as Mahler's been dead for 100 years and Philip Wilby's sitting right there, I'm going to say Philip Wilby." And that just Amy's response just made me think of that.
That's funny.
My favorite
Matrix dodged your way out of that one. Which, talk about movies, that one was not good. That movie was terrible. The new one. Welcome to our movie podcast where we talk about
my favorite brass band composer is the composer who writes more for brass band.
Whoever's present in the room currently.
Yeah, exactly.
So. What is all right? So you've also been involved. We've jokingly said on this podcast before that brass band's a drug, and once it gets included into your system, it's pretty difficult to get out to shake. Yeah. I mean, you've moved to a new area, and you're finding every way you possibly can to try to involve yourself in bands that are in your general vicinity. What is it about brass band that keeps bringing you back?
I think it all comes down to the community. I can play in a community band. I've played in different ensembles all around, and when I was in Atlantic, we used to joke that these people just kind of, when we had kids, they just kind of became default aunts and uncles to my kids, um, and so I think it's that community that is always seems to be there, and if it isn't there, then it is just kind of like it doesn't feel like a true brass band. There's always like the pub hang afterwards, or helping each other out with fill in the blank. And I think also selfishly, as a euphonium player, that's the place where I can go to actually be challenged with something other than something other than playing the tuba part and octave up. um and so having that, Aaron's counting on his fingers. I see him. I don't know what he's counting.
I'm bitter. I just rejoined. So I'm on assistantship now, and so I have to be in band.
So you're counting us all the time.
I forgot. I forgot what it's like to have more than 6 measures of rest in a piece.
Yeah. Right? I mean,
It's miserable. I brought a euphonium stand to rehearsal.
Yeah. I mean, I think in a brass band, everyone has a chance to shine, and it's at all levels, and all instruments, and so we're all a lot more entertained by our parts. I mean, the cornets got to play a lot of notes before; they get to play a lot of notes now. They probably haven't changed quite as much, quite as drastically as the low brass people. Our parts are incredibly boring sometimes in wind ensemble, and even more in orchestra. And a brass band, we have always have an opportunity to shine and have something challenging to tackle. So I like the mental challenge. I like the slight panic when NABA season comes around, when you get your part and you look at it and you're like, oh, I have to learn this. And then as time goes by, you slowly tackle it, and then by the end you feel super accomplished that you managed to learn something that the difficulty level would have been a recital of your own part for an ensemble.
So you've accomplished a lot of things that I think would be highlight moments for any career. I mean, literally, I mean, 4 bars rest. I mean, you just did a phenomenal solo, or well, duet at Midwest with the Athena Brass Band, which is an all-star group. And 4 bars rest said, they called you like virtuosic. They like said all the nice adjectives that they possibly, that they always said.
All the
And
nice
like,
things.
and that's like, for almost anybody, that'd be like, that's a highlight. That's going to be the best thing that happens in my career. And you've had, a slew of these things. Um, but I know you, and in the capacity that I know you're not done. So, what are some accomplishments that you're still working on, or that you hope to get done, in pertaining to the brass band space, at least?
So Amy's brass band will be in Spanish. I have to tackle the project. The next few steps are going to be to get a few more eyes on the Spanish text and make sure, because if you don't know, writing a children's book, somebody said, "Oh, you just wrote a children's book," like just meaning like a limiting factor of work. And we're like, you analyze every word of a children's book, because when you have an audience with limited lifetime experiences, you can't throw new words at them. If you throw a new word at them, then their brain will just shut off. It doesn't make sense. The whole context of that section of the book doesn't make sense. So you have to figure out where your kid, your imagined kid, how old is this kid who's reading the book, and what is their vocabulary? So doing that in English was one thing, but doing this in Spanish means that I have to have several eyes on the text of people who speak Spanish, who understand the reading, the reading comprehension level of like a kindergarten through like second grader, and who's familiar with brass band. So I'm gonna be working on that, and then figuring out a way to get that book into the hands of lots of kids. And then I also want to write a book, uh, a bigger book where I put together firsthand accounts of the history of North American brass band. And so that's a project that's going to take a very long time. So I don't mention.
She called it a bigger book.
A bigger book.
An academic textbook is what you're talking about. A bigger book. We go from children's book to. Yeah, that's a way to call it.
Are you doing it on just British style brass bands in America, or?
Well, I'd like to get this done before I die. So yeah. No, yeah.
It'll be a lot shorter than the British version of it.
So well, I think it's going to be, the idea is, so when I was in history class as a kid, I really didn't like history because there was this dead guy, led people to do that, led, vast numbers of people to do this. And it was usually to this general, led this battle, and this general led this battle, and this president did this. And I just didn't identify with that much at all. And so I kind of dismissed myself from being interested in history. But it turns out that I'm interested in the little personal stories of history. So I have random side note, I collect really old rings, and I can wear them because rings are very stable and you can just wear them as rings. So I have a few rings. I have one that's like 500 years old, one that's 1,000 years old, and one that's 2,000 years old. So you can just wear them. But I love the idea that this was someone's ring. Someone wore this on their finger. I like coins too, because that same idea, this was like a mundane object in someone's life. And so these big, huge, the way we tell history is kind of boring to me, because it's like, this big movement happened, when in reality I'm interested in what the average person was doing. So by collecting stories about little things from brass band, the stories that make your brass band unique, if we put enough of them together, then when you read through them, then you get the big picture from a whole lot of little pictures. And so that's the idea.
That's interesting. You ever notice that when somebody thinks like, who did you used to be in history? It's always somebody famous. When the reality is that you were probably just a peasant farmer. You certainly
Who are you?
You were
John.
not. You were not Tsar Nicholas. You were some sharecropper, and
Right.
What
were you in a past life? Well, at my age, probably just John the mechanic.
Right.
So before we completely wrap up, I wanted to bring up something that came across, just in my daily scroll through Facebook or whatever. Because you pop up on my timeline a lot, and you said something a couple, I guess last year, but during the holiday break, you said something.
I said something sometime. Yeah.
Well, I have the date right here. And I wanted to bring it up, and I'm gonna. So, I don't know if you remember this post, or if you're okay with me sharing this post.
That's fine.
And if not, I can edit it out. But I think this is a really cool mindset that you had, of and it's something very human, in that, like, oh, I didn't get the full stars. I didn't get my A+ review. And it can make us feel bad about a very significant project in our lives. And you mentioned kind of here that you had like a transition of thoughts, and how silly it is to have that thought process and stuff. What and you gave yourself a nice little review, which I've listened to this album and I would give it the same review. What's that mindset like? What was that transition? Because I'll be honest with you, I did not submit my first album for review. And because my next album is going to be very academic, I have to, and I'm very, very nervous about that. I'm very afraid of showing my dirty laundry to people. in so many ways. Even though I know that people have access to my album, like they can get a hold of it. I told them to. I asked them to buy it. So people are gonna have reviews of it. So what was that process like? Just kind of learning, or just like being happy with the thing you put out?
Well, it was, I think, immediately after my CD came out. So my CD came out literally the day my son was born, my second son. And so I don't feel like I publicized it much after it came out, because I was in that sleep deprived stupor that you're in for, a solid few months after having a kid. So I remember I did my best to submit it for some reviews and for some publicity stuff. And I remember getting the review um, while feeding my son, who was a newborn. And I'm getting at this point like 2.5 hours of sleep, and I'm just kind of like um, all this work that went into that, because when you put out a professionally recorded album, first off, it's going to cost more than you expect it's going to cost. And second, it's going to take longer than you expect it to take. It's going to take an awful lot of work. Um, and so for some reason, I looked at the stars more than the actual review. The actual review, if I read it without the stars, the actual review was glowing. The only thing that they said that was kind of questionable was, why did I include the Elgar's romance? And there's a really easy answer to that. I wanted to. like, somebody told me once that you shouldn't drill home a theme with every single piece in a recital. And so I was like, I don't want to drill home color and movement with every single thing. So let's put in just a beautiful piece that I like. um, that also the ABRSM put on their syllabus for euphonium. So I thought I can make it useful. I like this piece. And I think it would be just kind of a something to go off of with the other pieces. So that was really the only thing that they said that, like, what is this? But the review itself seemed totally like glowing. And it was those darn 3.5 stars at the top that I kind of was like, well, I don't want to share it, because I got 3.5 out of 5 stars. And then my friend got what was it, nominated for a Grammy, and his review got what, like 4 stars or something. And I was like, wow, like these stars really don't mean much. And so I finally just got over it and shared it, I think, like 2+ years after the CD came out.
Maybe they should just get rid of the star system altogether.
I think they should, because their opinions, their actual opinions and discussion of the album meant a whole lot more than this. And visually, 3.5 stars looks like an awful lot less than 4 stars.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you give a half star, it looks smaller. So I just thought, I finally just got over myself and got over my ego and was just like, I'm moving on. Here's this review that I've kind of not publicized at all until now.
Maybe they shouldn't even be stars. If they're going to be anything, they should be little gramophones instead of stars. 3.5 gramophones.
They should just review.
What's a
They
gramophone?
should just review an album. Like we don't need to
Is that what you play tapes on?
No, it's before tapes. It's before tapes. It's what the Grammy is. The Grammy is named after the gramophone.
Are the Grammys those? Is that on television?
It's music.
Is that thing old people watch as television? Oh man, it's actually getting increasingly hard. I had this is actually a beginning band book, and like they'll have stuff like folk songs and stuff like that like we all know. Mm-hmm. And then I'll be like, yeah, you know this song, right? And it'll be something like very trivial, like not like to the level of Old MacDonald, but like Old Lang Syne, for instance. And I'm like, you know what the song this is, right? And they're like a 14-year-old. I'm like, it's UVA's fight song. which it actually is. I kid you not. Old Lang Syne is one of their fight songs. I'm not messing with you. 100% is. Field goal. Ba-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, it's because they only score once a year.
Hey. They're too busy being smart. I have a special place in my heart for UVA since I had actually had a tumor in my ankle that they removed. I was supposed to have those like Forrest Gump things, you know. I was supposed to have those braces, and they were able to like handle it really well. So I say nice things about those people over in Charlottesville. Now driving in Charlottesville, never do that. Well, you survived the lightning round. You survived your scathing review.
Woohoo!
And here we are at the end. Before we wrap up, I do want to do the question of the week. This one was submitted by somebody, and I tried to find who they were, and I will make sure that if I find them in post edit, I will pop your name up on the screen right there. I just did a little pop effect. If I can remember who this is, because if you do submit a question to us and we end up answering it on the show, you will get a little bit of shout out too. We will put you out there. But the question is, how do you manage nerves before a gig or something to that effect? Since this is Amy's episode, I'll let her think about it the most. So she gets to go last. So Tony, you're screwed. You get to go first.
How do you manage nerves before a gig?
Because you conduct, man. Like that's like scary,
man. Yeah.
People have to stare at the back of your head like the whole concert.
No, people have to see my worst side, my backside the entire concert. That's not you know, a lot of it is you just have to ignore the fact that there's anybody watching. You know, I'll be honest with you, conducting the band doesn't make me nervous, not even in a concert. The thing that makes me nervous is talking to the audience. You know, I do not feel comfortable, no matter how many people tell me, you sound great, you sound fine, and you know, you're doing fine with the emceeing, and I'm just like, I hate it. I can't. It's all terrible. Anytime somebody video records a concert, you know, they say, "Oh, can I record the concert?" Yeah, and they send it to me. I was like, just make sure you just send me the music. Don't send me the talking. I don't want to hear that. You know, so you know that there's getting prepared for it is like, you know, I mean, for my performing, I'm a tuba player, and I play church gigs and weddings and stuff. All that stuff's relatively easy. So there's not really a lot of nervousness that goes into that. You know, if there is something big that comes up that could potentially have nerves on it, you just got to make sure that you're rested. You're not cramming into it. You're hydrated, and then you mentally are just like, well, I'm going on with it, and you just got to plug through it. It's, you know, and then you sweat a little bit, and then you go right through it. You know, I don't have any eat a banana trick or, you know, take beta blockers or any of that stuff. I don't really have any like that. It's just, well, you can't avoid it. You chose to do this, so just do the best you can. I also think, you know, that preparation is the cure for nervousness. You know, a lot of times your nerves come from the fact that you may not feel like you're ready to do it. And I think there are people out there who are always nervous, and I think there are people who are never nervous. You know, like I can imagine. You know, can you imagine Bud Herseth being nervous about anything? You know, when he has to play. You know, I mean, everything he plays is exposed, and he never misses. So there's obviously no nerves going on. He got ice water going through his veins. So he's calm and cool and collected. And there's lots of musicians that are like that. And I'm not one of those, unfortunately. But I do just make sure that I just put my head down and go at it. And my number one trick is to ignore that there's an audience. Sometimes being a tuba player, I get stuck like backstage. I played a chamber orchestra gig 2 weekends ago. I was literally off stage. You didn't even know I was there. So I just made sure I honk loud enough every once in a while to say, "Hey, there's somebody back here." So I don't have a great answer for that, unfortunately.
I think telling people with NABA season coming up to stay hydrated is really important, especially you folks in championship section where you have to play 2 nights in a row. So on that Friday night, just remember,
I think
you got a Saturday coming up.
2 drink maximum. 2 drink maximum.
But
guys.
when you say hydrated, not hydrated with beer, That's not
That's the thing.
hydrating.
You got like that. Exactly. You gotta make sure. I'm just saying.
Don't
You know,
party until
as
you
much
win the trophy,
as
man.
much as us lowly first and second section people are gonna be like, yeah, we're done on. Let's go do that. Go.
Yeah.
Keep calm.
Got another gig.
After Saturday. So for me, so I always try my best to play it cool, and like whenever I'm in those situations, like I try my best to like be like not showing it. I'll never forget when I had my hernia surgery. This was like when I knew like, hey, you're not the guy you think you are. When I had my hernia surgery, I was fine. My mom was there because she had to give me the drive. She had to drive me. I was like 22. I was pretty young to have one, but and I was like, cool, calm, and collected. Everybody's asking me if I'm okay. I'm in the gown. I'm in the bed. We're like, we're good. We're fine. They're taking my vitals. Everything's good. And then, like, I'm on a heart monitor because they're going to put me through anesthesia. So they're going to, they got that thing. And then when they start to roll me, I start sweating. And my heartbeat's like this. And I'm still trying to, like, no, I'm good. I'm fine. We're good. We're fine. Right? And I'll never forget. I've never had a moment of instant relaxation, and I'm not saying this is my trick. I've never had a moment of instant relaxation like when the doctor realized I needed morphine and just kind of put that into my IV drip, and then I just like, right? But that was a moment of realization of like,
So
I'm not as cool
morphine.
and calm that I think.
So it's morphine. That's how you get.
It's not morphine.
You
It's
heard
not
it from Aaron,
sweet. It's not sweet morphine. Oh God, this is gonna get taken out of context. But I had the realization of like I am not the like ice in my veins person that I thought I was. I get nervous, all that sort of a thing. And having just knowing that about myself was okay. And then as a performer person, taking that knowledge of just like knowing, okay, I'm not that guy. I'm just not that person. And then exposing myself as much as I could. There's a famous quote out there by some musician who means more to the world than I do, and they say that. They say that you don't get good at being nervous. You just get good at you just learn how to be terrified or something to that effect. And that's pretty much it. Is the more I've
going.
Yeah, and the more I expose myself to like your gut, like there are times that you're going to be uncomfortable. There's times you're going to be nervous, and just knowing what my body does. Anybody who has the misfortune of going to my recital next week, you will see me drink a lot of water on stage because I get really bad dry mouth, especially in the state of Florida because air conditioning is going and taking away a lot of the moisture. That's just me. If you all see me at NABA, you will see me. I'll have like 3 or 4 water bottles with me. I'll have like, other people have a mute that they have to take out of the bell. I'm gonna have like 4 water bottles, like a case of it that I just take out. It's just the way it works for me.
If you need to, you can empty your spit into your water bottle and just keep the water supply going.
Yeah, I hear that's more environmentally friendly, right?
Environmentally friendly, yes. Aaron friendly, maybe not. But yeah, that was really it. It's just like knowing how my body is going to react and being comfortable with that, and instead of panicking that I'm shaking or something, panicking that I like just knowing that these are things that are going to happen and knowing how to deal with those things ahead of time and being prepared for it in that way. All right, Amy.
Okay,
Give us the best advice.
I'm totally different from you too. I do a lot with getting myself in the right mental state to go on stage. And so when I was when I was an undergrad, I realized that sometimes when I was performing, I was in like a different mental state. I could focus better. I could handle what was coming at me better, and I didn't know what I was doing. And after a while, I started getting better at putting myself in this focused mental state. I would meditate before I go on stage or something. And so I labeled it to myself. I think I called it like hyper focus mode or something. Like I can just like hone in. I'm still nervous, but the nerves I managed to mentally put in like the background more. So it's just kind of replacing that, if the nerves are in the front and the music is in the back, then the nerves are my main focus. But like, it's hard to describe, but I learned to put the nerves behind me so that they're still there, but they're just kind of like a little thing in the background. And so through like my master's degree, like I was still working on kind of figuring out how to put myself in that state. And I could figure out, I kind of developed like a few ticks that I can do to like meditate to myself, even if I'm just backstage. I figured out how to just kind of close my eyes and take a few deep breaths, and get more focused, get my heart rate under control and everything. And then in my when I was at school at Rutgers, my my one of my music ed professors, because I took like supplemental music ed stuff while I was there, and he talked about someone, I'm going to butcher this name, I apologize to anyone who actually knows how to say his name, but I've only read it, but his name's Mahai Krishnamahai, and he wrote a whole bunch about flow state. And I realized at that point that I was, for big performances, I was essentially putting myself into flow state, and I didn't know that I was doing it. For years I'd been doing this. And it's not for every performance, but it's you can bet that when I come out on stage at NABA, I'm in that mental state.
You'll be in flow state?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so what it is everyone has been in it at some point. It's the state when you're practicing and you kind of lose track of time and you get really focused on your music. That's essentially, that's flow state. That's what you were in. And so if you can harness that, it took me probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years to start figuring out what, so when I'm backstage before big performances, if anyone's listening to this, if anyone's listening to this, no, if when people are listening to this, and if you have a big performance with me and I disappear and just kind of close my eyes before I go out on stage, that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of taking some deep breaths. I'm kind of focusing my mental energy. And then I go out there and I'm still nervous. The nerves never go away. The nerves never go away. But at least I can kind of put them kind of in the background a little bit. And it helps me to focus more on what I'm doing and what I'm, so the audience kind of disappears a bit. The music comes to the forefront, and I can pay attention to what I'm doing a little bit more. If I'm in a recital, I'm gonna tell you, the first piece of a recital, I'm going to be still really stinking nervous. But then after the first piece, I tend to either be able to get into flow state, or I can at least enjoy myself enough at that point, because I've proved to myself that I can play and I'm not going to sound like an idiot.
So you would prefer to be at NABA and play the choice piece and test piece on the same program so you can get better and get into your flow state as the performance goes on?
No, especially not in championship. Holy cow, no. No, when we were in that, when I was in Atlantic, we labeled each other as people who were nervous talkers and needed to be social before we went on stage, and people who needed to be alone before we went on stage. And so the people who needed to be alone, we kind of just left them alone. That was me. That was a few other people that we just kind of, people knew, don't bother these people. They're getting focused. They're kind of getting into the right, headspace. And then there are some people that, if they're left to their own devices, are going to think too much, and then they're going to panic if they don't have someone to talk to. Yeah, Aaron's waving. That's him.
That's him. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all.
If I'm not talking, the voices start.
So if you know who you are, you can plan ahead, because it turned out that the people who didn't want to be talked to were getting annoyed at the talkers. So if we figure
backstage.
Right. So if you figure out who wants to talk and who wants to be silent, you just kind of disappear to your corner of backstage area. And we could get ready in our own way. And then, last minute we'd get in our line, and the talkers would be quiet. and the quiet people would understand if they're cracking a few last jokes, but that's how I get into the right mental state. And I would encourage everyone to read up on flow state, and see, in the very least, when you're practicing and you get into that point, see if you can stretch how long you're focusing like that, and begin to harness it. I mean, I'm not doing that. It's exhausting to do that for a long time, so I wouldn't do that. But like when I was in labor with my first kid, with a failed epidural, my body just apparently.
Wait, they can fail? I was going to say they can fail.
They can fail.
Oh no.
Yeah, they can. Turned out like my body processed it like at a higher.
Joke's on you.
Yeah.
I want to be in pain.
Right, exactly. And so I would just disappear. I just mentally just disappear into that mental state and just bye, guys. It didn't work for an incredibly long time, but it at least bought me, some time. So I'd encourage anyone, Mahai, Krishnat Mahai, we'll look him up. I'll get Aaron the link so that he can post it. And he wrote several books kind of about what it is. But that's kind of helped me in my preparation before I go on stage, just kind of being able to mentally get in that place.
That's cool.
Well, this has been fun.
Yes.
Sound facetious. I'm being genuine. This genuinely was fun. We had the idea of having like these individual host podcasts because I listened to a podcast that you were a guest on. Yeah. And I was like, I've learned more about Amy listening to this 45-minute show than I have in hosting a podcast with her for 6 months now. Right. So I'm glad we're doing this and to learn more about everybody. But yeah, that's our show. Hey, thanks anybody who is still listening to this point. If you haven't already, because we're really bad about promoting ourselves, if you haven't already, please make sure you are liking the things and subscribing to the things and doing all the algorithmic things. Yes. Yeah, and hey, we also have. I edit the video portion of this, so I'm going to promote. We have a YouTube page. If you want to watch this, it's there. It happens. If you want to see the gags that go on when we're not talking. All the juggling that Tony does to keep his mind at work while we're going. If you want to see all those things, please, everything is still New World BrassCast. You can find us whenever you search the things. Make sure you're leaving reviews and all that sort of thing. It sounds mundane, but man, it really does help with other people finding us. And if you have anybody who you think would be interested in this, please share it. But otherwise, hey, Amy, thank you so much. Tony, thank you so much. I think we'll call it a day.